So we have the final panel before lunch. And so I am so excited to welcome to the stage a special group of female influencers from all over the world who's going to give a perspective now of global ecosystems. Because as you could tell, when we started with Haiti, then we went to the Caribbean, and now we're going to talk about the global startup ecosystems and perspectives from probably the only women leadership panel of the entire conference. So please, can I have to the stage Asra, Nadeem, please, Angie, Kerstin, Shaina. Please welcome all to the stage. And Addie, least but not least. Okay, all right. So as we get settled, going back to the conversation about why we structured the agenda the way it is. We started up this conversation today about the Haitian ecosystem and the potential for innovation and leveraging tech and entrepreneurship to accelerate economy. Just now, we just heard the perspective from the Caribbean ecosystem, and now, I first want to introduce each one of these ladies represent an entire region of the global startup ecosystem, which is the founding organization for this initiative that is the Haiti Tech Summit. So really quickly, I'm going to have each one of them introduce themselves before we kick off the conversation. So first off, right to my right, I'm going to start with Angie. Please introduce yourself and the market that you represent as a director.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you, everyone. My name is Angie Carrillo, and I'm here to represent Latin America. And I'm here to represent Latin America.
Latin America in the house.
And I'm very happy to represent this region in particular because I'm Peruvian, and I've lived in two of the hubs of entrepreneurship in Latin America, Mexico and Brazil.
Any Mexico and Brazil in the house? There you go.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Whoa, that was loud. My name is Asra, and I represent Asia. I grew up in Pakistan, and I have been working with startups in Middle East, North Africa, and Asia for the last 15 years.
Woo! Got Asia in the house.
Hi everyone, my name is Addie, and with my very English accent, I represent the United States. I actually live in California now, and I'm very proud to represent the United States because I actually moved to the US having quit my job in finance in Europe with 2 suitcases, didn't know anybody, didn't know anything, and I just wanted to learn and educate myself in tech. And the US has provided me that opportunity, so I'm very proud for that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kerstin. I was born in Canada, grew up in Estonia, and at this present moment, I'm living in San Francisco, working in tech and representing the European startup ecosystem remotely from San Francisco. My background is such that prior to moving to San Francisco, I was actually very heavily involved with the entrepreneurial scenery in the United Kingdom, where I was running the Entrepreneurship Society back in my university and also running operations for the United Kingdom's largest organization for supporting students in enterprise. So it's been a really interesting experience learning both about the entrepreneurship challenges in Europe as well as in the United States, particularly in Silicon Valley for me.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shaina Silva. I'm Haitian American, currently based in Lagos, Nigeria. For the past 2 years, I've been living in Nigeria and working with government and private sector, building capacity within the Nigerian startup ecosystem. And I am the regional director for Africa, for the global startup ecosystem.
Woo! And Shaina is also part of the Haiti Tech Summit team. So this is the panel. So as you could tell, we have a lot of perspectives here. We have Caribbean, Latin America, Asia, Africa, and Europe on the panel. And I first want to start, as leaders and directors of each region, what is your opinion, starting with Latin America, because a lot of people talk about Brazil and what's happening across this region. What do you anticipate will be the necessary items or people and influencers needed to build an ecosystem in Latin America? And what examples have you seen in the past couple of years that you think could be applied here in Haiti?
So, oh, this is much better. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to, and borrowing from Ben's talk, I wanted to ask you, everyone here that is from Haiti, a question like, how can we all move from being users of technology to creators of technology? Because Latin America is very big on being users of technology, where we only have 50% of our regions online right now, but we've moved to be 20% of Facebook's user base of users and 38% of WhatsApps. So over the last 2 years, what I've been doing with my life is basically asking this question: how can we move from users to creators of technology? So what I did is I founded a coding bootcamp in Mexico that teaches kids to be the next generation of innovators, and actually change the chip in our brain that we can be creators of technology, even though that we live in Latin America, even though that we live in Asia, or whatever we are, it's up to us, right? So one of the things that I think is very important for Haiti and everyone here is to realize that no matter where we are, we can start creating technology, and I think this is why it was created, the Haiti Tech Summit. And some of the examples that I've seen and I've been part of in Latin America, coming back to your question, is, for example, my own startup called Lix.co, also nonprofits that are teaching how to code and teaching other things like Epic Queen, which I've been also part of. And yeah, just there are several initiatives that are coming here. Also Startup Grind, I think the guy was just on a panel, and there are a lot of organizations that are all around the world that are coming here to Haiti and are here to help you also how to get those skills and how to get just the things that you need.
All right, so pretty much you're saying that from the perspective that you've had from Latin America is that you want us to transition from being users to actually creators of technology. And that's one thing I think. Has anyone, by show of hands, been to the Women in Tech Summit that happened at El Rancho? Raise your hand. That was an amazing event, and that people didn't realize that a lot of people in Haiti or anywhere in the world use Facebook, but don't use a medium to even create their own social media platform. They have YouTube, they take in information, but they don't create information and content and value. And so this conversation of creating value is also very important when it comes to building tech ecosystems within your country. But usually you need a platform, you need universities, programs, and also VC perspective. And just a quick shout out, all of us are actually graduates or connected to Draper University. And,
Yay!
and by a show of hands, how many people in the room know Ntim Draper? Okay. So Ntim Draper is a billionaire VC, very charismatic person, well known within the Silicon Valley area. And he really believes in innovation, entrepreneurship, and the young generation of leaders. And all of us actually from all over the world attended this program. And I want to pass the mic to Asra to talk about, when you look at an ecosystem, how do university programs, but also VCs sparking those programs, impact a startup ecosystem from your perspective?
Definitely. So I actually run Draper University, and I meet a lot of global, get to interact with a lot of global ecosystems. And one of the things that I find very fascinating, and it's very true for Haiti as well, there's a lot of parallels there, but one of the biggest is access to capital, right? Nobody has the money, and all these family funds or people who have money are comparing startups to like investing in a cow, for example, or buying a piece of land, because that's lesser of a riskier investment, and well, you'll get the yield pretty quickly with a cow too. So how do you compare that to a startup out of which 95% of them are going to fail? So that's one problem. The other problem is that our colleges and universities are still they're centuries old, so I'm from Asia, Pakistan. I have a very similar education system as Haiti because we were colonized as well. So it's kind of the same education system. We're still reading, teaching people the same way, and while we might have liberated ourselves or become free, our mindset hasn't changed much. So,
very important on mindset.
So when we talk about mindset, that's the most important thing. How do you change the mindset of investors, of entrepreneurs, of products that we're building? And that's kind of the biggest challenge that we see. And I'll give you guys some examples, right? So for example, in a lot of these emerging markets in Asia, everybody wants to start an Uber or everybody wants to start an Airbnb. But when I ask my mom, would you sit in somebody's car? She's like, hell no. I'm gonna go with my driver. Would you sleep in somebody's house? Why? Why would you sleep in somebody's house? So, well, there are other problems that need to be solved. There's no infrastructure, there's no access to capital. So how do you go after solving those problems? How do you change the mindset of people? And the most important thing is to start at home. Look at problems that you can solve that would create infrastructure. So for example, people don't want to send their kids to school because they go out and work and maybe earn $5 to $10 a day, $5 to $10 a month for the family, which is a lot of money for them. So how do you disrupt an education system like that? Well, introducing a skill-based education system where you actually pay the families a certain amount of stipend, the same money that these children would have earned to help them go to colleges. Or, well, the healthcare is broken, we don't have mobile banking. How do you solve that problem? Well, mobile banking is one. Blockchain, that I'm sure Jack is going to talk about tomorrow, is another very interesting infrastructure. There's no healthcare. Well, we have a startup that is working in Asia. So in Asia, 3 out of every 5 children are born with jaundice, which is they're all sick, they have jaundice, and these machines that the World Health Organization provides are enormous. We don't have electricity to power those machines, so what are we going to do? This startup started using iPads to actually power these machines, so they re-engineered the problem. So when I say thinking about problems differently, that's how you think about problems differently. That's how your governments should think about problems differently, and that's how your universities and educational institutions. I don't know if you guys study Old Men and the Sea here, but it's something that's still taught in schools, and it's like compulsory literature. Well, great, but moving on, that's 100 years old. It doesn't add anything to my lifestyle. The guy didn't have infrastructure, right? So how do we change that? And the easiest, internet is there, access is there. It's just about changing that mindset, and that goes from universities to capitals to entrepreneurs.
Wow. No, and I think I'm very happy you brought that up, because many times when we talk about building ecosystems, people see examples in other regions and don't feel like it's applicable to their story or their community. And you brought tons of examples as to how you can see it from different perspectives, but it starts with the mindset of who you're connecting with. The core mission of this summit is to bring all the right people in the room to not only inspire you from perspectives, but to try to change your mindset. Because we have investors in Haiti. We have entrepreneurs in Haiti. We have corporations in Haiti. We have a government in Haiti. We have everything, but it's the mindset. And so with that said, Africa, I don't know if you've seen, but there's like a awakening happening across Africa. From the outfits, I see the ladies in the room, including Shaina with the outfits, to the culture, to the music. Now if you go party, you hear a huge influence of Africa and the diaspora and that culture. And a lot of that is not only the music and culture and the pop culture that's rising to the top, but there's also a brewing of a tech ecosystem that's coming, because the mindset is starting to change. And so I want to pass it to actually Shaina. who is very successful in connecting the right influences together to build ecosystems across Africa. What makes you successful as an influencer making that happen in a place like Africa, where 10 years ago, there was a lot of assumptions that Africa wouldn't have taken off? And that's a complete conversation now. So give us some perspective as to what you've done to make that happen.
Sure. Thank you for that question. So I think it's not necessarily a single factor. It's a collective movement that's happening where government is seeing the potential of the continent because external parties are now coming into Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Uganda, and seeing the potential for themselves. And so the government is awakening and saying, okay, so maybe we need to see something that maybe did we miss something? Like, because all of these people from the outside are now coming in and saying that there's potential, maybe we need to do something about that. So the government is shifting their mindset. The second is education. We've all seen that there's been weaknesses in the education system. A lot of graduates are leaving universities, and out of the 668 universities across Africa, 10 million students graduating every year, 50% of them are left jobless. 10 million people is almost the equivalent of the entire population of Haiti. Imagine all of these people without a job. So they're realizing that. And they're now creating programs that are allowing students who graduate to get funding, resources, and training to become entrepreneurs. That's the only pathway. So as an influencer, I don't really consider myself an influencer, but as an enabler of the ecosystem, I would say that my role has been to connect the dots. So I'm a Haitian American living in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm bringing the perspective of another emerging market that's suffering from similar challenges. And so I can bring the perspective of Haiti into Nigeria and say, these are the things that we face and these are the things that they've done. And now being in Nigeria and experiencing the ecosystem there, I can bring that insight into Haiti and say, these are the things that African governments have been able to do. These are the things that private sector in Africa have been able to do. And this is how Haiti can perhaps structure themselves to do the same thing. One program, for example, that has been extremely successful in reducing unemployment rates in Nigeria is called Ready, Set, Work, a program that I manage with Lagos State government, where the graduates from universities were placed into a program that had two pathways. You either get trained to go into the workforce as an intern, or you get trained to become an entrepreneur for 13 weeks. After 13 weeks, those students were matched to companies. So the government actively sought out companies within the ecosystem to partake in that program and take in these interns. So that's the job of the government, is to proactively seek out people in the local economy who want to participate in moving the country forward and incorporate them into their programs. And so these 250 graduates were matched to Total, KPMG, McKinsey, companies that they would have never had access to because these students don't have the networks. And all of you know very well in emerging markets, the culture is about who you know. So most of the time you get a job based on who you know, not what you know. So that's another weakness. And so creating these types of programs actually allows for people to have access to opportunities based on meritocracy and based on a process that now makes it more inclusive for more people.
Amazing. And no, amazing perspectives on that. I want to go back to something that Shaina mentioned, which is how the government transformed their perspective in terms of building the nations across Africa based on the international community coming in, not based on aid, but based on actual economic opportunity, because there's a difference. Haiti has historically been, even before the earthquake, been positioned as a place of only for aid support and not economic opportunity and business development. And Africa had the same similarity issue. And as international started coming in and seeing the opportunities for investments in different industry sectors, the government started to get involved. And so with that said, when you see something like that, this summit has brought a lot of international perspectives. And as you see more, that engagement and that friction between the local perspective of what our problems are in the country versus the international perspective as to how they could provide solutions for those local challenges can really change the paradigm and change the mindset of every stakeholder involved. But there's a bedrock to that because you have to be creative now for creating new solutions, and that's where entrepreneurship comes in. So I want to come to Kerstin, who is actually a Forbes 30 under 30 entrepreneur of Estonia, by the way. A round of applause for that. And who truly embodies entrepreneurship, not only in the organizations that she's a part of, but her perspectives as to what an entrepreneur needs to be successful, especially in an ecosystem. So Kerstin, can you just provide your perspective as to how can an entrepreneur leverage, even if there are gaps in their ecosystem, how can they leverage their talent and perspective and creativity to help accelerate innovation within their country from their perspective? And that's a loaded question, but I know you can handle it.
Thank you so much, Christine, for the wonderful introduction. So it's been a very interesting journey for me, as I mentioned previously. I've been experiencing the British startup ecosystem. This was 4 years ago before I moved to the United States. Now I've been part of the Silicon Valley. And by far, at this point, I would say Silicon Valley has taught me perhaps the most. But at the same time, when I look back home to my home country, Estonia, which has, more and more so established itself as an entrepreneurial, rather a startup hub in Europe, I think that Estonia would be a good example for how you could push innovation with sort of minimal, most of all, minimal people, because our country only has 1.3 million people. So first of all, from an entrepreneur's perspective, I would say the question comes down to, your question was around how can an entrepreneur help push innovation within their ecosystem?
I mean, what tools do you think entrepreneurs could start off with? Like, for example, you're part of the Lean Launchpad, right?
Yes.
How does an entrepreneur, if I know what resources are out there, how can I tap into that? Because back to Shaina's point, it's who you know, not what you know. But if you know it, there are different changes now, right? So what do you envision an entrepreneur could do to leverage into that?
So that brings me to the lean startup, the lean movement. This is something that I've been studying for quite some time now. I'm actually involved with an organization where we build and create software for organizations to help drive innovation by utilizing the lean principles. Quick question here. How many of you are familiar with the lean startup methodology?
Raise your hand. Wow.
Wonderful. So actually going to the lean startup as an approach to innovation, what I find so fascinating about it is that instead of the typical approach, at least what I see when talking to startup founders, is that we've come up with a great idea, we've done a little bit of research, we've talked to a couple customers, we've talked to friends and family, we really think that we have what it takes to start a company. We've done some online research, we're ready to build our product, and then 6, 9, 12 months later they realize, hold on, we could have actually avoided the mistakes that we made by talking to prospective customers first. So the idea around lean and how lean could help push innovation within your ecosystem, regardless if you are in Estonia or in the Silicon Valley or in the United Kingdom, is that when you come up with $1 million, billion-dollar idea, before you go out there and build your product, you sit down and you break that big idea down into hypotheses. You question yourself around every assumption that you have about your business idea. So taking that approach from a startup perspective to, let's say, a government perspective or an accelerator perspective, even a corporation's perspective, when you have a big idea, you gather your team, you challenge your team to break that big idea into assumptions. You then get out of the building to do customer discovery. Instead of running online surveys, you actually sit down with people, you talk to them, and then you start gathering evidence around those hypotheses. You realize, you know what? Actually, quite a lot of the assumptions that I had about the idea that I'm working on are wrong. In fact, six innovation startup projects out of 10 typically are wrong, even when they're ran by experienced entrepreneurs. So what I'm trying to say is that by taking, for instance, the lean approach, either in a government context, accelerator context, or a startup context, by basically challenging yourself to establish assumptions and talk to customers from day one, rather than building out your product and then starting to find whether or not there's a market there, you will do not only yourself but your team and everyone else a big favor in terms of cutting the costs and time that it takes to get to product market fit. Yeah. And I do apologize. I am that I'm slightly slower than I normally am speaking because I'm currently suffering from a pretty high fever. My apologies for this.
Oh, trooping out, Kerstin.
But thank you so much for your question.
No, amazing, amazing. And I did get a couple great perspectives out of what you just said. The first being, when it comes to entrepreneurs, in a lot of emerging market ecosystem, there's this mentality of just put the product out there and use advertising to market to find your customers. Whereas the perspective she is saying is, what you should be doing is asking questions to your market first, see who wants it, and actually create the product for them, right? And that's a completely different mind shift. Because like for example, the other day I saw someone post on Facebook like, hey, I want to, does anyone want blue dresses with red ribbons on the sides as a strip? She could have very much have created the dress and just say, I have 10 available, who wants to buy it, and put the price. But instead she asked and realized that actually a lot of people want it in red and yellow stripes. And so that's the dress that she actually created, right? So that's the perspective of actually asking the right questions to your potential customers first before creating a product. And as entrepreneurs, you have to be very creative of knowing that and preparing ahead of time before putting yourself in a position where you spend 6 months' time, energy, and very limited capital into something that probably won't work for your market, right? So with that, I want to conclude with Addie, representing the USA. Everyone's always talking about Silicon Valley, what's happening in New York, what's happening in Miami, and all these different hubs in the United States. I mean, one of the marketing messages behind the Haiti Tech Summit is Silicon Valley has descended upon Haiti, right? And Silicon Valley is also trying to extend itself and go to different parts of the world because it's like this model innovation hub that everyone wants to replicate. What are your thoughts on that? And are we supposed to be replicating Silicon Valley or just being inspired by Silicon Valley and redefining innovation hubs entirely?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. You can't hear me? You can't hear me? Okay, so better? Okay. It's a great question, and actually one of my favorite questions to talk about at the moment is about Silicon Valley and how that influences other ecosystems. I mean, honestly, I think there's a very quick answer to that question. Should people replicate Silicon Valley? No. Should people draw inspiration from Silicon Valley? Yes. And I'm very, very clear in that stance. I firmly believe that the next big thing will not come from Silicon Valley. And I firmly believe that it is ecosystems like Haiti that the world should be looking to, because that will provide the next big thing. And we can say that with conviction because everybody is descending to these ecosystems. I mean, we talked very much about Africa and how people are trying to get involved in Africa. I mean, the only reason why investors are not fully into Africa or cannot really get the hold that they want to is because they do not understand that market. It's not because they don't understand the opportunity, it's because they don't understand the culture of that ecosystem. So, my advice is we want to be global. We want to connect the world. If people want to come to this ecosystem, if Silicon Valley wants to come to Haiti, let them come. Just make sure that it's you that is teaching them and not the other way around.
Wow.
I think it's a really exciting time to be an entrepreneur. I think it's an exciting time for the world. I think it's an exciting time for Silicon Valley. The barriers to entry to be an entrepreneur are much lower than they have ever been. I think the definition of what an entrepreneur looks like in Silicon Valley has totally changed, thankfully, probably not fast enough. But I think, that image of the white, tall, probably blonde, guy in a basement coding is not necessarily the case. I mean, the fastest growing market for entrepreneurs is mothers, right? And I think if we take all of that and we look at Haiti, what it really shows is that entrepreneurs come from all walks of life, and they come from everywhere. I mean, I also believe that entrepreneurs started in developing economies. It didn't start in Silicon Valley. And it started in developing economies because of the everyday hustle of trying to survive, right? That really is what entrepreneurship is. I live in Silicon Valley because I'm inspired by it. I believe I would not be where I am today without Silicon Valley and the opportunities that it has given me. And I'm very aware of that, so it is not me berating Silicon Valley by any means. I think right now it has the best talent in the world. Right now, I think it does, but I do think that is set to change. I think it is an amazing education ecosystem, so I definitely say that inspiration could be drawn from there. You have great universities, but understand the value of your ecosystem, and just like Asra said, it's about bringing it home, right?
Amazing. So, just another round of applause for the perspectives given on this panel. And I guess I'll conclude by saying, look at the different perspectives that I was getting about entrepreneurship, tech, and ecosystem. And one thing that I will say, these conversations, usually the person spearheading these conversations are not women. And look at what you just heard today on this panel, just for the past 25 minutes. And I think it's very, very crucial that as we look at ecosystem development, whether it is in Silicon Valley or in a place like Haiti, having the right perspectives needs to be balanced and needs to be broad so we can input and actually really accelerate innovation in a completely unique way. So with that, I would like to conclude this panel. And again, thank you so much for your perspectives, ladies. So, how was that? So, I know everyone's ready for this part, which is lunch, because there's so many questions you want to ask, so many people you want to meet. But before you exit, you need to know where lunch is and the structure. So it's a couple of housekeeping items. One thing I will say is lunch is not back at the Cameron Beach Resort. We have a private section for lunch. When you exit out of these two doors, go up the stairs and make a left. It's by the pool area. We have volunteers to guide you to that path. So it's not back to the resort. Exit out of the doors and make a left by the pool area. That was where lunch will be. Second item, hold on. There was a lot of, ladies, please. Please, decorum. I think we can do this. You could give me 2 more minutes of your time, right? We could do that? Decorum regarding the agenda. A lot of questions as to what's happening today. If you check the back of your badges, the entire agenda for the summit is right there, okay? Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is provided by our lead partner from Access Haiti. So the name of the Wi-Fi for you to tweet, capture this experience is Access Haiti to Camera. And we have stickers for an additional Wi-Fi code, which is .com. You do not need a password to log in, okay? Third housekeeping detail is seating. I would ask everyone, please leave with all your belongings. You cannot leave your baggage or anything in this room. When you return from lunch, we will tell you the new seating arrangement, so please leave with all of your items. Now, the rest of the day will start at 1:45 p.m. sharp in here. We are actually back on schedule due to contrary opinion. And so please make sure that as you're navigating the exhibit hall, lunchroom, that you make it back in time, because we are going to start with the next ecosystem panel at 1:45 p.m. here in this room, okay? And a final point, there is no exit out of this door during sessions. Please respect the perspectives of our speakers and have decorum. And please, if you need to exit the room during the session, exit out the back door. Only VIP speakers enter through this door during the beginning of the session, and everyone else enter through the back, okay? Just to make sure we have a fun flow and we have fun. So with that said, please off to lunch, and thank you for the morning half. Thank you, everybody.